Services again to the Prime Minister. Yesterday, the former Deputy Prime Minister, Mr Keating, described your government as lacking energy, leadership, political strategy, esprit de corps, cohesion and camaraderie. In other words, your government is a divided, directionless rabble, which he believed will now ebb out of office. That was yesterday. What has changed?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
The view was incorrect yesterday and it's incorrect today. Now, Mr Speaker.
Order.
Mr Speaker, first let me say that the view has been effectively and comprehensively rejected by the Parliamentary Labor Party this morning. It's not quite as good as the majority will have in '93, but it's good enough. Now, Mr Speaker, second, let me point out that the idea that there has been some monopoly on ideas is not correct. The situation is that this government, through the whole of its period and through this term of office, has had a situation where the Cabinet as a whole has made a very significant contribution to the whole range of relevant government policy for this country. Let me, without being exhaustive about this, Mr Speaker, it was the Minister for Community Services and Health who has revamped the social security system, directing resources to those in need, with particular emphasis on the family allowance supplement, who is comprehensively reviewing Medicare, and who was the original proponent of the Better Cities concept. And he will see those proposals through from his new post as Deputy Prime Minister. Senator Button has had responsibility for our successful steel industry plan and other industry policy initiatives, for truly historic tariff reform, and for initiatives to support research and development in this country. May I say, Mr Speaker, that the cooperative research centres, the Ballarat speech in '87 committing us to a microeconomic reform agenda, the special Premiers Conference process with its unique ability to create nationally consistent laws and overhaul Commonwealth state financial relations, the 1990 round of microeconomic reforms including telecommunications and the role of airlines, and the recent waterfront negotiations were all contributions in which I was able to be very significantly involved. The deregulation of grain handling, the deregulation of oil marketing, the rescue of the wool industry, reforms to sugar, tobacco, citrus and dried fruit industry, the promotion of the interest of rural Australia are only part of the contribution that the Minister for Primary Industries and Energy, Mr Kerrin, has made. And so the list goes on, Mr Speaker. Environment protection, foreign policy, education reforms boosting payments to students, numbers of places at university and retention rates, defence with a succession of overhauls and equipment, manpower and contracting out to ensure that we have an effective fighting force. Now, Mr Speaker, those are simply some of the range, not merely of ideas, but effective policy implementation which has been engaged in by a whole range of members of my Cabinet. But there's still a lot more that will be done by this range of talent, Mr Speaker. The following initiatives, Mr Speaker, for instance, are in train and will be delivered over the next 12 months or so. The Medicare review. While you on that side struggle for any health policy at all, we're doing what we can to improve an already very effective one. That's the difference between us on health. As far as the special Premiers Conference is concerned, in that area, Mr Speaker, we'll be having land transport reform, nationally consistent rules for a range of industries, the National Rail Freight Corporation, and improvements to the state's capacities to both fund and to deliver services in this country. An ongoing social justice agenda, Mr Speaker, through Better Cities initiative and through the amelioration of locational disadvantage by addressing problems of access to employment. The initiator of that is the Minister for Community Services and Health, the Deputy Prime Minister. Now, Mr Speaker, that will be going on, and there will, as I say, be the amelioration under that program of locational disadvantage by addressing problems of access to employment, education and services faced by people living in particular areas such as the outer fringes of major cities and rural and remote areas. We'll be seeing the sale of Australian Airlines, a new competitor to Telecom, genuine major productivity gains on the Australian waterfront, internationally Well, you see, Mr. Speaker, again,
Order. There is far too much noise.
we have the
Members on my
suggestion
left.
that these people opposite know more about waterfront reform than the employers themselves. The employers on the waterfront are hailing these reforms as giving productivity improvements of the order of 50 to 60%. That's their judgment, not yours. Mr. Speaker, in the area of foreign policy, there will be continuing major thrusts on South Africa, Cambodia, in the area of disarmament. There will be a continuing dynamic engagement in the Uruguay round, and we'll be continuing to build the economic, the political and the strategic basis for a secure and prosperous future in Asia. We will continue a fiscal policy, Mr. Speaker, which will maintain the structural integrity of the budget while providing an effective level of support for the recovery, which will start to become evident in the second half of this year. There will be a further ratcheting down in inflation, and I ask those opposite who try to jump onto this particular bandwagon, all you could do was to give a legacy to this country of double-digit inflation. We've brought it down, Mr. Speaker, where the underlying rate of inflation is of the order of 4%, and we will continue during the rest of this term of government to create what now for the last generation has been a unique achievement. That is having a rate of inflation in this country which is lower than that of the OECD. The first time that that's been achieved for virtually a generation. There will be a continuing focus, Mr. Speaker, on the means of underpinning the major initiatives in science, research and development under the Clever Country Initiative. Mr. Speaker, this is a government of and for the 1990s. It is the case, Mr. Speaker, and I deeply regret it, that we have lost one of our better performers, and of course we have. And we will miss him. We will miss him. We've lost one of our better performers. But, Mr. Speaker...
Order.
Mr. Speaker, I acknowledge that fact and I regret it. But I'm saying that it has the resources, this government, Mr. Speaker, has the resources, the talent and the skill, the will and the commitment and the purpose to emerge from this traumatic process through which we've admittedly gone better and stronger and even more prepared to put the interest of the ordinary Australians of this country first.
The honourable member